Yume is a pretty huge project, like almost 1,000 worlds huge. There's definitely been no shortage of content coming in throughout the 16 years of development. Parallel to this stream of content, there's also been a good chunk of worlds that have been just removed from the game. And if not removed, then altered by their other insignificant ways. And that actually brings us to our first world, Underground Laboratory. This world has been changed so drastically that its original implementation might as well be a removed world. So what you're looking at now is actually the first version of the world. There wasn't really much at the time, and there was a lot of it. Like, a lot. Yeah, this was the biggest map of the game. I don't think anything even comes close to it. When I saw this map while playing the game, I felt immediate dread, but I was exploring after it got updated. Okay, a few patches down, it got a facelift, tires, funny stuff, and barricades. Pretty much the entire world was blocked off from even exploring. Yeah, so that big ass maze is gone. It doesn't exist, basically. Teleporters are in place of that maze now. Also, there's a built-in map showing where you are in the world. It's still in the world right now, but it's just a novelty, as the world is basically a small hallway to connect a few worlds now. You know, I had a feeling that the map was a lie when I first saw it, and that turned out to be true. I have respect for the people who played during that small window of time and had to go through that insanity. Now, of course, on that same note of drastically changed content, I gotta talk about the big cheese. The cheese in question being the Nexus, and its many reiterations. Being the main hub world of the game, the Nexus has definitely seen the most changes over the years. So much so that I almost don't know where to start. But I do. And we are starting with the start, the first version of the Nexus. This version had jack shit, even less than the previous versions by a good margin. Reason being is that they started from scratch and scrapped a lot of the existing content, so we only have the library in this version. There is very little to see, so there's not much to talk about in terms of removed content. This is not the case for the even older versions. These versions had an immense amount of cut content. They are so novel compared to what 2K has become that it basically exists in its own bubble. But I'm not going to show much of these versions in particular. Okay, on the 2K anniversary, I made a video exploring basically all of what these versions have to offer. I think I did those versions justice in that video, and I can't really add anything more like I can with everything else. It is wildly different, and every asset is a piece of removed content. I would have to put the entire game into this video if I were to cover it. If it interests you, you can check that video out or play the versions for yourself, which I do recommend. I'm sure you'll like it. I am quite fond of these versions. Also, check out this sick ass guitar in the first version. Okay, let's talk more about the Nexus. So after Utsuki was introduced to the game in place of old Protag, rest in peace, the Nexus was expanded like crazy, like a whole 8 worlds or so, with all sorts of connections and knickknacks inside that we will talk about. This is mainly because there's a massive gap in downloads available to the public for these old versions, which I regret to inform you means that there might be lost content in that gap. For example, there's a minigame prototype that was added and removed. I asked around and no one seems to know much about it. It's probably lost media at this point. Alright, I gotta cut myself off there. This is post-editing Pureko, and this is not true, because I happened to stumble upon World 042 in RPGMaker while looking at old versions. And, well, would you look at that? So after freaking out, I decided to go in game to it via debug mode. Surprisingly, I was able to load into it, but very briefly before it kicks you out back to the room. Now I really wanted to see this world. So, I went through the event script things in RPGMaker and found out what was sending you back to the room. I deleted it, and yeah, you can now not only access it through debug mode briefly, like I did before, but you can also use the game console to access it normally now. A fully playable minigame that was supposed to be lost to time. It should probably be archived somewhere on the wiki. Also, to clarify, This was totally accessible at one point by normal means. It was just removed later down the line and we couldn't ever see it because of the version gap. Okay, actually back to the Nexus now. But what I can show you is the red-black world. Probably the most prominent piece of removed content in this specific version. This world is the beginning of a very extensive history of being changed and reworked into other things. It was actually the first home of the fairy effect, but unfortunately, the stupid fairy decides to lay waste to wherever she resides. This world does not exist whatsoever in modern Tiki, which is honestly a shame because it was a lot cooler than some Nexus worlds we have now. Like, come on, you're gonna tell me that the designated death room and this guy didn't make the cut? This guy? Also, I believe this is the first appearance of the chaser enemies in Tiki. Also the first appearance of the highway, which is the only connection in this world besides the sub areas. We'll get back to the highway soon, it's pretty important. But right now it's just a road with no connections. 2 updates later and this world was absolutely demolished and became this red-black maze. It had a whole lot of nothing. I guess it has a funny guy, but like whatever. They got rid of my fast buddy. I'll say it, I'm not a fan. I'm guessing 710 wasn't a fan too, as it was killed off 10 patches later. But yeah, at this point the world had 2 new unique connections, with one of them being the world that replaced it in the Nexus, character world. Not gonna lie, this world doesn't really have all that much going for it. I mean, it has characters, numbers, math, and my son. Guys, I spent like 2 hours trying to fact check this and I couldn't find anything. But as far as I am aware, this creature doesn't exist in game anymore. It is so devastating. Like, look at it. Who took his legs? Now, while this world doesn't exist in the game anymore, there is a restored character world. It doesn't have some specific assets the old world has, but it keeps a general idea of it. Aside from that, this one didn't last that long either. Died alongside its only connection. Although, in the same update it was added, it did bring something with it that's still kinda crazy to me. Pokemon World. Some people believe that 710 ripped the Pokemon sprites from Gen 3 and made a world out of them. I don't think that's exactly what happened though. I mean, look at this. Like, get off their case. Okay, maybe it was a little inspired by the Fire Red and Leaf Green tile set, but that's honestly fine, right? Let me introduce you to Desu-chan and Oni-chan, the pro tags of Pokemon World. Desu-chan has some unique behavior in the earliest versions, with said behavior being getting a little drank from the vending machine. This character has a really weird set path. Usually when characters have set paths, they'll be walking in a straight line or a circle. I'm guessing they did this to make it look like she's using the vending machine. For some reason, a few patches later, it got removed, and she became still and drankless. If you killed Oni-chan, the street light next to her will turn off and Desu-chan would run away from you. I'm telling you now, but she's gonna be dying a few more times. There's a path here, and if you walk on a certain tile, you'll get blocked off by this dude. You gotta walk on the flower to avoid it. Yeah, sick puzzle. Beyond that is the fairy effect that you have to catch now. This is just my little theory, but I feel like this could be based off of the Japanese only Mew event where you catch them in a small forest. Which also looks like a pain in the ass. But yeah, you catch her and she slows down. Some updates later, this world got a massive reconstruction. And of course, the 2 gals were still in the starting area. Now when you do murder Oni-chan in cold blood this time around, upon leaving and re-entering the world, there will be a pink thing in her place. I don't know what this is, and this is the last time we see it. If I were to guess, I would say that it's related to this pink guy. I mean, they're both pink. This character is a tribe settlement creature, but it's pink. This fella serves and will continue to serve as a spot that you will be dropped off at upon using the new one-way connection from tribe settlement to this world. The area you get dropped off in is totally isolated from everything else in this world. And going left from here shows this thing. This blob. I don't know what this is, but I like it. It's pretty funny. He has many shrines and admirers. Like he never does anything. He doesn't even beep at you. Now in the main area, there's 2 paths that branch out with the one to the right being basically nothing for now, and the one going down leading to the fairy effect. This area and its gimmick never really changes all that much during this world's lifespan, aside from maybe a couple layout changes here and there. This iteration of the world has seen some pretty meaningful changes. Let's start off with the little ones. First off, the layouts. The world was getting really fleshed out at this point. This area to the right got a beach. There was a really long path that led to absolutely nothing. The blob's followers have erected a puddle in his name. And the pink fellow was put in prison. Now, when you kill Oni-chan this time and refresh the world, a black pit with a trail leading to it will appear. Oh, what's in the hole? Death. I did not expect to find an event like this. It's honestly so cool to me. So, after this version, there's even more history to this world. Pink fella was set free. And a whole lot of shit was removed. I don't get this version. There really wasn't anything added to it. There's no way this world could end on an update like that. It's because it didn't. Holy shit, why is there more? Yeah, it got another rework. You remember that trend of removing content in this video? 710 loves that shit. This world got turned into a hallway. Why does this always happen to worlds? Okay, it does have a couple cool things like the bird exhibit. They don't bite, by the way. And the never-ending hallway. If you go past the trigger with the penguin effect, you'll see a lone Oni-chan. It also finally got a soundtrack, the one you're listening to right now. I really like the aesthetic of this version, how it's a floating island connected to the highway. And that's the final state of the world. It was removed the very next version. After actually going through the history of this world, it became very apparent to me that there was a lot of love put into it. I really hope it gets restored one day, somehow. But until that happens, we can still appreciate what was a sick-ass world. Anyways, this next piece of removed content has been in my mind for months. I'd say it's the most important piece of Tuki history in general. Check it out. Where am I? What the fuck is that? Yep, the FANDOM wiki is removed. Dead. Gone. Not really, but you should stop using it, like, ever. So I'm sure a lot of you are informed because I even made a post about it, but I know not everyone's gonna see that. A lot of this information came from Mitzi and Autumn. Thanks for getting the word out there. The FANDOM staff have removed admin perms from the admins and owners for some reason. So people started vandalizing the wiki because there's an even better wiki with no ads and corrupt staff. So why not? Why use this one? The wiki you should be using is yume.wiki. It is always up to date and still has people dedicated to keeping it that way. If you play YNO, then the default wiki you get redirected to is yume.wiki. On Google, if you search YumeTuki, you will almost always get the FANDOM wiki on top. To circumvent this, you can add -fandom to the end of your search to omit all FANDOM results. The FANDOM wiki will probably stay at the top as long as it is used in any way. This all happened a while ago, but I couldn't get a video out during all that. Even though I'm late, I still think that I should include this because I sometimes see people mention the FANDOM wiki or have troubles with it. You know, while Saul Goodman World might be awesome and thought-provoking, you should just use Yume Wiki. On some real shit, Toy World has probably become my favorite world just from the amount of stuff I found while researching. It was already up there for me because of all that I found in the past while exploring its older versions. But really, I haven't even scratched the surface of its history. When this world first became accessible, the design was totally unique to what we have today. Shit looks like Roblox. Apart from the main area, there was a sub area that doesn't have all that much right now. It was really weird and buggy in this state. Like the Nexus portal would take you to the front of the graveyard world for some reason. I'll be mentioning the mini maze as it was the only connection it had. Also, check out this pre-release mini maze. This was before Toy World was even a thing. I couldn't access it though. The last thing about this version is the old rainbow effect. I originally thought that you couldn't really get to it, but turns out if you sleep 5 times, then a bridge will appear. Kinda sick. I think I said this before, but I really do like the old sprite for the rainbow. Maybe more so than the one we have now. It's probably because of how novel these old effects are to me. There's a few more that I'll show later, but for now, I'm gonna show you the coolest update I've seen in Tuki. Upon entering the world, you'll be greeted by a transparent Urotsuki, and she follows you. And if you somehow get split apart, she'll still follow you. Why is this a thing? It's so cool. It doesn't really do anything, but it's sick. It could be a build up to the next event, if anything. So if you go to the sub area, she will stop following you and start pathing towards the wall. If you touch the tile she disappears on, this shit happens. Like, what is this, Karad? What are you doing? Why isn't this in game now? I freaked out when I saw this. It's so random. It's like such a tukey thing to be in the game, you know? They don't do much when you interact with them, but walking on the blocks will make them travel upwards. Because of course it does. And yeah, there's just casually a fully functional chessboard just sitting there for no reason. How did I not know that this existed? Well, it's fully functional in the sense that it does what a chessboard needs to do. You can move pieces around and drag them and do all sorts of things, as in two things. It was at this point in exploring that I, for some reason, was like, nah, this is a modded version. It's not. I don't know how I could have missed this before, but it was definitely in the game. Last thing about this version. Jeez. Karad decided to omit this from the game because there was bugs with it. But I thought it was worth showing. You get some pretty early developer insights on how the cheese was inspired by Alice in Wonderland. This is debug mode, but come on, it's relevant. It's cool. It's cheese. Incidentally, although not accessible by normal means, this world was removed in the next versions. A lot was, as the world began to take on the look of the toy world we have today. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty lame. You spawn trapped in a box with your only option out being sliding on these super slow tiles. Yeah, these tiles are some ass, they are everywhere in this world. To get to the mini maze this time around, you have to go through what is basically a 20-second auto scroller. Yeah, it did have day and night towers at this point. There was minor tweaks to this iteration later on, but nothing interesting. From here on out, the changes that were made to the world get a little weird. Well, the cheese mechanic was fully integrated at this point. It was quite lively and completely unique compared to the previous version. And then the next iteration threw all of that away. It was definitely the emptiest it has ever been. Or at least that's what I thought for a really long time, until I looked into the event scripts. So when you make a file, what you teleported to when you entered the toy world is kind of a decoy of sorts. Upon finding 5 wallpapers, the actual world will unlock. It's absolutely massive in comparison. Like, there's even these little metal block guys walking around. I don't know what these guys are actually called. I am so sorry. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I'd imagine someone back then would enter this world and think to themselves, oh, this shit is some ass. Never to return after getting the 5 wallpapers. Also, for some reason, it connected to the gray road. Awesome connection. Thank you, Karad. The next revision took a different turn and it became a closed off box. And this is what then became Toy World B, when Karad decided to split the worlds to revamp it. I'm not going to talk about Toy World B because it's already heavily documented on the wiki, and I've probably been talking about a Nexus world for too long. It is removed content, but you've seen all the interesting things already. Except for this. Why is there a crosshair there? Why is Urasugi getting airstrike? Someone please help her. Okay, I lied. I want to talk about some more Nexus stuff. Check it out. Concrete World. It had a really cool sprite. Yeah. It had a cool sprite. It was a one-way for some reason. I originally had a huge segment for this, but I kind of realized, unlike every other world, everything here was just reused. We still got Smile Sign and friends. I mean, yeah. Goodbye, Concrete World. Hello, Theater World. Guys, the Nexus sprite for this world is so beautiful. I really wish it was still in the game. Not a fan of Rock World. I'ma be real. Not a fan. Apparently, it had a connection to Cogmaze, but I cannot figure out how the hell to get it to work. Theater World was kind of replaced by Cyan Relic World, I think. It connected to Theater World throughout its life in the Nexus. To access it, you need to wear glasses, and it'll be this weird pill thing wandering around. It was weird. I don't know how to explain it. Just look and listen. Oh my fucking god. Calm the fuck down. What is that? I wouldn't go as far as to say that I am a fan. It was basically the Cyan Relic world we have now, but gray. It got a revision later on without the Minecraft YouTuber intro music, but it had Evil Blood Portal this time instead of the pill. Rest in peace, pill. I actually stumbled upon the pill portal by accident when messing around with the effects on the old versions. Good pill. This world connects to the escalator. It still does, but it looked way different back then. This older version smacks. Whole different vibe than the one we have now. Like, what the heck? They turned it into neon paths. Why they do that? What? Anyways, Nexus portal was removed and it was moved to Theater World. So the author of the Graveyard World had a different take on it back in the day. Warning for flashing images, by the way. It also attacked your sense of sight with what I can only describe as jump scares because this scared the shit out of me while I was looking at old worlds. Attacking your sense of hearing just wasn't enough apparently. Also, the hospital had some shadow ladies in it for some time, and very briefly, for 2 versions, the Myco effect was in the Graveyard World. I think that's pretty cool. I don't think this is documented anywhere. In some of the earliest versions, if you were to go to Panel Passage through Heartworld, there would be a little NPC that would tell you to place an effect somewhere around here. I guess they got their wish, because later on, the Twin Tails effect became obtainable here. Of course, it was removed later on, but yeah, scary. Also, Valentine's World was absolutely disgusting. But I like these guys with long legs. I don't know if their design is still used somewhere in the game, but yeah, pretty cool. I got a few more Nexus worlds here we gotta talk about, but the Dream Apartments is the last Nexus connection I expected to include in this video. It turns out that this world wasn't even a Nexus connection for a while. To access it, you would have to go through the mini maze, which is a pain in the ass. The layout was quite different and lacked a lot of connections. Notably, it lacked the stairs and it was a really kind of big room. Even though it was just a layout change, it had a much different vibe. I don't say this about many things in 2K or in general, but it definitely had a liminal space feeling. It was also home to the wolf effect, apparently. Yeah, from looking at the event scripts, I think it is a 5% chance that this closet will give you the wolf effect. Honestly, the removed content for this world isn't really well documented, like a lot of things in this video. Like, this room is only referred to as the dark room in the patch notes, which could be easily mistaken for the dark room in Marijuana Goddess World. To add on to that, there's things like this patch note that says that the rainbow effect was moved to the dark room. It was never in the dark room, it was actually moved to the sewers in Japantown. I don't really know the purpose of this room. You can light it up very briefly with a lantern effect, and it'll play really loud noise I'm not gonna play, and that's about it. Yeah, there's really nothing more in this world. Anyways, I was thinking about this one a lot while making this video. There's a world that was removed really early into development called Plant Labyrinth, and the wiki states like something like, this world is really easy to get lost in. Like Lyseth was not having a fun time with this world. Look at the map for this world. You just saw the entire world, by the way. Also, there was this world, what is it called? Black Labyrinth, Vanta Black World. This shit is lame. It's gone. They're both gone. They're both gone. Yeah. Now look at this shroom. I hate to compare shrooms, but which mushroom here would you like to chill with? Probably this one. It's pretty chill. The world inside it is not chill. Old Mushroom World was so unbelievably cluttered. For once in this video, I think that the new version was basically a direct upgrade to the old version. There's not much unique things about this older version of Mushroom World except for this guy, this Mushroom Fan. Mushroom Fan here doesn't really do anything as far as I know. He just kind of stands there next to the vending machine. What was interesting about this world is its connections. White Mushroom World is a little different too. It had a mushroom ritual area thing, and when you touched it, you would be teleported to this room full of spiders. I don't know much about this room. When I was writing notes for this video, all I wrote down was White Mushroom World had a room with spiders. They look like ponies. Okay. It always had this ugly ass world. Still ugly. White Fern World. More notably, it connected to the apartments. On the path to the apartments, in place of the Hibushi we know and love, was a little boy that had the same functionality as her. That boy is now Hibushi. This is canon lore. Isn't that awesome? There's a few things to mention while we're here, other than the fact that the apartments look totally different back then. A connection it had and still has today is Sky Kingdom. It was a totally different world, and I love it. The old Sky Kingdom was restored by 80 Gap, I love ADO worlds, but it is one of my least favorite of them. It lacks some fun things the old one had, like the NPCs and some interactable walls. Because of course, ADO can't just reuse the assets, right? Anyways, the Sky Kingdom connected to another Odin world that was completely revamped. Brace your eyeballs for Ecstasy World. I am so glad it was reworked. The new one looks so nice and I cannot stand the old version. So I am going to just go on ahead to its connection, the Forlorn Beach House. This world is completely unrecognizable to the Forlorn Beach House we have now. For the longest time I was wondering, what the hell is this world? Until I looked at the wiki. The sub areas for this world were all redrawn later on. Me personally, I think the old version of this year in particular was tough. Before we move on from the apartments path, I want to talk about how awful 20 is. This is yet another jump scare, and it's probably the worst one in Tiki. See, if you go to the docks via debug mode and use the default parameters 0, 0 on both coordinates, you'll be teleported to here. Looks fine. Then you walk. It plays a really loud error noise, and you can't do anything. No menu, no nothing. 20 decided to surround the 0, 0 coordinates with jump scare tiles. No cheating in this awful world, 20 says. Well, in later versions, 20 moved the jump scare tile on the left to be more out of the way. Only the left one though. The dogs is the main antagonist of this channel at this point. I hate the dogs so much. Mushroom's other connection, Bug Maze, was so sick. Like, it was an actual maze with sprawling and invisible paths. It had a much different style than what we have today, and it even had a whole event that's just gone. So if you go through the hand up connection, go back and forth, you'll eventually be teleported to a red version of the bug maze with angry bees and such. The bees will hurt you, or at least they will throw you in bee jail. I don't think these are actually bees, by the way. Bug Maze also had an even older iteration. It was so ugly. There's not much to say about it other than the fact that it did not connect to the mushroom world, as it wasn't a thing yet. The spider event in Bug Maze also looked way different, in line with the art style. It was still a really fat bug, I'm talking fat ass bug. Some things just never change. Since the sign world is a connection, I'll mention that it had a pyramid that would swap between the sub areas of the world. But more interestingly, this world was a part of a really cool event that was just completely cut from the game. We'll get to that in a second. Before that, you should look at this cool ass bug I found. The bug effect had a different sprite along with the bug person. That's the other place you get it. I really like the music in this world. It is the same world that has the event that I was talking about. Droplet's world is what became of Character World. This shit was beyond destitute. There was nothing here for you to even look at. In the earliest version, it only had like one object in it, being the portal to the highway. The latest version of the world got a little smaller and a little more bearable. And this guy, I usually give funny creatures a funny name. I think I called this one Evil Jimbo or some shit a while back. So inspired. If you got a better name, let me know. This character was actually broken upon its initial release. He didn't have his hand. Why? Also, he was much smaller. Why? Okay, as for new connections, this world had Grey Ghost area added to it. Pretty weird. If there is one interesting thing in this world, for me, it would be the lack of interactions it had, while still looking like there's a lot to it, if that makes sense. Again, it was strange. There's this room with some toilet things. It appeared in the first version and got removed shortly after for some reason. I think this is the same toilet in the dark room. Yeah, both these worlds are dead as hell. They were both replaced with the Onyx Tile world, the last Nexus connection in line before it became Purple World. It's basically the Onyx Tile world we have today, except it has assets that the Purple World has, like these purple worms. And here's the fun worm. He's sleeping. I'm gonna be real, I don't know or remember if it's still in the game. It might be because I've still yet to explore all of 710's work. The only connection other than the highway here was the black building. It of course has the fairy effect. she has a different sprite here. And this is the conclusion to her journey throughout 710's worlds. But I didn't really fill you guys in on her full story yet. Highway. It is essentially the heart and soul of Lost 2Key content. More specifically, the first content to ever be in the game. There's an entire room dedicated to just showing off the original assets of the game. For not too long, it was also home to the fairy effect after it lost its home in the Pokemon world. By its nature, as it is a world containing a bunch of 710's removed content, the highway itself doesn't have much removed content. This is not true for its many connections that have been completely wiped from the game. We'll do this in chronological order, starting with the Red Desert. The first version I could find of this world was quite red. There was a lot of red. This world boiled down to being some pixel art on the map done using the tiles. It always had one chaser and these red tiles that are reused from the hospital. 710 was really a fan of repurposing assets from other creators, which is really cool. Also, these fellas are in the final version of the world. They share some similarities to the Fast Guy and Red Black world. Big fan. The next removed world had an unusual way of access, being the removed event of these dudes disappearing. ASCII world. It was supposedly a revamped and improved version of the character world. Now that I think about it, maybe Red Desert was that to Red Black world. Anyways, I honestly don't think that it is improved, as it doesn't have my son. Where is my son? There is 0 NPCs in this world. This funny face does not make up for that shit. Yeah, this world had a very short lifespan, lasting only 4 months in this game. They're done. They're both gone. Out of all these removed worlds, I have to say that this next one is definitely my favorite. Everything about it is so aesthetically pleasing. I really don't know why it was removed. The portal to this world was the same portal that was used for the Pokemon world. Once you chainsaw it, you can enter the purple neon maze. This world's initial release had a connection to an area in the Grey Ghost world, although the majority of the Grey Ghost world was far gone by now. This connection was removed in an update and replaced by an old version of the Grey Road portal to the highway. Grey Road? Grey Ghost? Coincidence? Anyways, this world featured chasers that would teleport you to death zones, like the Pokemon world. And more notably, this fairy fountain. Pretty cool stuff for just a death area. You can't collect the fairy effect by normal means here, but if you use no-clip, she can still be collected. This fountain also had a really strange sprite in a much earlier version. It was really buggy. I don't think this is in game today at all. And of course, neither is this entire world. This world was then removed as the highway got fleshed out and expanded into the massive world we have today. There is a lot more that I really wanted to talk about. Most of these things are out of the scope of this video. Funnily enough, there was some segments that had to be cut just all together, making this video have some removed content. But some 2Key things you just can't talk about. This probably sounds very esoteric, and that's exactly what it is. Maybe one day I can revisit those things, and if not, then I will still make a follow-up one day to the things that I can cover. I'll probably explain more in the description or comments if you care. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for 1,000 subscribers. More than anything, thanks for the kind words. I really do appreciate it. I'm genuinely sorry I haven't uploaded in a while. This video took a lot. That's all I'll say about it here. Also, look at this dehydrated Jimbo sprite. Goodbye.